Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this second Digital German FP&A Board. Today we will be talking about moving from traditional controlling to extended planning and analysis, XP&A as we call it. My name is Hans Gobin. I'm an interim FP&A Director, International FP&A Board member, and today I will facilitate this meeting. Just so you know, we are today potentially be joined by 500 odd attendees, which is a great meeting. And of course, 5 distinguished panelists as well. And we will get a very good insight into the subject matter from these people. Let me take you through what we have in store for you as the agenda. So tomorrow we'll talk about what is extended planning and analysis. From traditional controlling to XP&A, so a case study from Avira. How do you manage this shift culturally? Next generation XP&A model, what does it look like? What do we need to do? And then we'll go on to talk about what are the skills for Agile planning and analysis. We will end by looking at finance priorities for the next 12 months, which is a 2020 global survey by Protiviti, conclusions and recommendation, and then we will go on to our Q&A session. Previous meetings we've had in Germany, so we've had 7 face-to-face meetings. The last digital meeting we had was around digital transformation. Today is the second one. It is now a good time for me to introduce the esteemed members of the panel we have on today. So I would like to ask the members of the panel to put their webcam on and come off mute whilst I do that. So thank you very much, panelists. Our first speaker today is Thomas Kogelberg, who's Director Controlling and Finance at the German leading consumer IT company Avira. Thomas has extensive experience in FP&A, controlling, having held several director roles in software companies over the past decade. Thomas is keen to grow controlling FP&A teams into business partner roles and drive change towards data-driven organization by, of course, fostering state-of-the-art business analytics. Thomas will today share with us the evolution of controlling towards this XP&A function in Avira. Thomas joins us from Ravensburg in Germany. Thomas, you're very welcome. Glad to have you on the panel.
Thank you, Hans, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Abby is our second speaker for today, Abby Obomighie, who is Group FP&A Director at Spectris PLC. Abby has worked in various FP&A roles across several continents, different regions, different industries, and is also a London FP&A board member. Of course, she comes from London today as well. Today, Abby will share with us how to manage this culture shift whilst we're going towards this XP&A journey. Abby, thank you for joining us on this panel.
Thank you, Hans. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Abby. Our third member of the panel today is Michel Haesendonckx, who is a Global Solutions Owner for FP&A at SAP SE, with broad expertise in the area of finance and performance management. He drives the go-to-market in this area for SAP and is highly involved in key innovative topics. With 25 or so years in finance and at CFO, controller and external auditor level as well. I gather that Michel also writes book and he's published his first book on SAP S/4HANA around finance. Michel will take us through the next generation of XP&A model. Michel, you're very welcome on the panel.
Great to be here as well from my side. So looking forward to the discussion today.
Thank you very much, Michel. Our fourth member today is Marie-Luise Lehmann, who is founder of Finance Goes Agile and heads the working group Agile Controlling for the International Controlling Association. She has many years of experience in leading FP&A finance and specializes in agile planning and controlling. She also advises finance departments on agile practitioners on transformation program. Today, Marie-Luise will talk to us about skills required for an agile controlling and planning function. Marie-Luise, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Hans. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Our final member of the panel is Matthias, who is Managing Director at Protiviti, Germany, sister company of Robert Half Germany. Matthias oversees the solution line business performance improvement and Protiviti's digital transformation services. He advises clients in the area of corporate strategy, performance management, business and digital transformation. Today, Matthias will share with us the finance priorities for 2021 from their 2020 global survey. Matthias joins us from Frankfurt. Hi, Matthias. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, Hans. It's a pleasure being part of this group, and good afternoon to the audience.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great panel in front of us today from a few parts of the world, mostly Germany, but Belgium, which is where Michel is from, and UK, which is where Abby is from. Looking forward to some exciting insights from you in the next few presentations. Thank you very much. If you could switch your webcam off and go on mute. I have a few slides before we start our presentation. So, just a quick slide to share with you around what FP&A Trends Group does. I think everybody's well aware this is trying to bring together the Frankfurt FP&A Board, but much more importantly, bringing together the Germany as a whole. Just also to advise you that we have also started doing best practice workshop and FP&A consultancy work as well. So what is the Digital FP&A Board? 90 minutes webinar, and we would very much like your participation with the 4 polling questions that we've got, so please vote and give us your insight. Interactive Q&A session, you can start asking questions to the members of our panel from now on via the chat box. You can network with our panelists through LinkedIn as well. There's a presentation available for you to download. You will also receive recording and copy of the presentation within 2 days of the meeting. At the end of the session, there is a feedback session for you to help us get some insight into how you felt the meeting went. So please do give us that feedback. A quick thank you slide to our technology sponsor today, which is SAP, one of the world's leaders providers of modern FP&A solution. Thank you very much, SAP. And to our global recruitment partner, Robert Half, of course, we all know, one of the world's leading professional recruitment consultancies. Couple of quick slides for me to go through. So what is XP&A? It is a modern planning process that really goes beyond the entire organization. It is known by various different names, so integrated FP&A, digitized FP&A, next generation FP&A, agile controlling is, of course, another name. What are the key traits? We all know about it: agile, collaborative, integrated, company-wide, practically on demand, real time, using techniques like AI, ML, predictive, prescriptive, and business partnering. So we will talk about 5 key aspects of XP&A today, and we will start by talking about evolution of controlling. The speaker for the day is Thomas Kogelberg, Head of Controlling and Finance at Avira, and Thomas will take us through his journey in Avira. So Thomas, ready when you are, Thomas. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Hans, and thank you for the nice introduction. So just general info for those of you who don't know Avira. Avira is an IT security software company, so we are doing software to protect you, the users in the connected world, against all cyber threats on your mobile, on your computer, etc. And we do this with 500 people around the world currently. And on the next slide, you see that when I started at Avira, and this was 4 years ago, the world had already changed around us. So we were coming from a traditional retail business and were now in an online business. So everything was online. Sales, supply chain, delivery, everything online, with lots of data and lots of different KPIs and metrics you need to understand to really steer the business and understand the business. And also, we were kind of drowning in that data we're getting. So we got 500 million events per day from all our customers. So it's like transactional data, purchase information, etc. But it became crucial to really understand this data, to also understand the business and to come to the right conclusions and recommendations for the business, which we couldn't give at that time. And other things changed, like development cycles. So in the past, we had development cycles for a new product release of half a year, 1 year, but this now changed even to 1 week. So there was someone in the development who had an idea in the beginning of the week on Monday. It was tested during the week, and the prototype was built up and then tested at the end of the week. And then it was decided how to go forward. So, and you can imagine traditional business cases where you have kind of a look at month or even years don't really work here anymore. And also we were kind of a bit limited by the organization in terms of we couldn't really build up staff because we had to be lean and we were kind of in a competitive environment and couldn't really get new people on board to help in this challenge. Plus, the business teams around us also needed guidance for us because they also had to cope with all these changes and ask us to help them, and not only on financial topics. And on the next slide, you see that we basically changed 3 things. And at that time, we didn't have a master plan. So it's really, when we look back, what have we really changed? And there are 3 big areas. First area is people and culture, which is obviously the most important one. So what we did is we tried to get to really a business supporting unit in controlling. And this we did by just purely defining a simple vision and mission statement. And this said, everything what we are doing in controlling is there to support the business so that the business unit itself are able to do their business and their work best, and that they are being supported in their daily challenges, which means we don't even focus only on top management, but really on the business and not only on financials, because otherwise that wouldn't be enough. Also, you need, of course, to have the right people with the right mindset on that. And we had most of them. Plus, we needed some additional skills, which we hadn't at that time, like analytics skills. So we trained our staff on that. And there's just one thing which was kind of very great for us, I can really commend this here, was the Harvard Business School Business Analytics course, where we trained ourselves, but even the whole company in that, to really understand, get to the bottom of analytics and understand what this is and how this can be very powerful and helpful for the whole company. But there are also things we did, like self-learning platforms like Datacamp, Udemy. We used them to train SQL skills, BI skills, etc. Second area were processes. And there's one key process we have in controlling under our management, which is the forecasting and planning process. So what we did here is we brought all teams together in this forecasting process. So from product development, marketing, sales, and the top management. And we met in a 2 bi-weekly cadence and got input for this forecast. But the key thing here was we didn't just put on the output values, like talking about, okay, how will be the revenue be in 2 weeks time or 1 month time? How does the cost look like? This is not something we focused on. We really focused on the underlying drivers behind. So which triggers do you need to pull to become better, to increase the billings and revenue in the future? So what is it? What is really driving the growth here? And third big area is technology. As said before, we were kind of a lean and limited organization in terms of we couldn't really build up many people to do all these new things. So we really need technology here to get further and basically come to 10x efficiencies. And obviously, you also do this via automation. Just get rid of those standard tasks and really automate what can be done automated. And also here, there are basically 2 things which were very important and key in this whole process in terms of technology. So we really built up a data lake in the cloud infrastructure where all the data was coming in and was easy accessible. And it was kind of scalable so that you would tear down silos and really have everything accessible in one central lake. Second is then on top of this, we build up with modern BI tools an on-demand framework, meaning we just set up this framework on reporting and analysis once and made it available for the whole company so that the business teams could access this and got to the information and analysis they needed when they needed and just didn't have to ask for some controllers to wait for them to send out some nice formatted spreadsheets, but they could really get it when they were asking for it. And we, by that, could even focus to help them with more valuable tasks, like more getting to the details and providing more value around it. And on the next slide, you'll see how we evolved here. So where we're really coming from a pure cost controlling. And I think most companies are somehow following this path here. So cost controlling is just, we did some nice P&Ls, nice gross margin reports, which is of course important and you need this in the company. However, we want to get further and become a real partner for the executive level. And by doing this, there are basically also two things. So one thing is, of course, you need to have the full bandwidth of financial topics inside. So also not only cost or P&L, it's of course cash flow, working capital, and all those KPIs, of course. But much more important was you have to become really a partner of the management by giving them recommendations. So just giving you a pure example. So if you see something development in the business, just saying, okay, manager, you have 3 ways to act, and these are the pros and cons to it. And we would recommend going forward with this option because of this and that. So this is really key to also become an important partner for the executive level management. But then also this, at one point, you can't get further because just financials won't help you. So you really need to get deep into the business to become kind of a real sparring partner for the top management. And we got there by approaching even the business partners. So we asked them, okay, business team lead X, what are your daily challenges? Where do you need support? What is it, what's important for you? And how can we help you? And by that, the business leads just shared the information with you and helped you to get more knowledge, but also you could then support them and help them, and they could really see the value in you. And with the information we got there, we basically cycled it back to the executive level management and got shared those insights. And this was kind of a self-feeding process over time. So this brought us really, really forward. And the last step in our journey was basically getting these analytics skills, really to understand this big data environment and really get to the bottom of it and really have the deep, deep understanding of the business. And here, as said, we used internal training or training with external courses, but also what we did, we mixed teams. So in our controlling team, we also got data analysts there, which had a completely different skill profile. So they could do coding, they had knowledge of databases, etc., and brought all this together in our team, which then also helped the other team members to step up. So this was probably not the last step in our journey. So I'm really looking forward to what's coming ahead. But this is actually the last slide on my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Thomas, thank you very much for a very exciting presentation and taking us through your journey. But you know, obviously we ended up on the last slide, which is in a way a maturity model in itself and a few steps to follow. And I'm sure the attendees, the board members today would really appreciate that. Can I invite Abby and Michel to join us and give us their comments on Thomas's presentation? Can I start by Abby first, please? Abby?
Hi, Thomas, that was a great presentation. I think I love the fact that you talked about root cause, actually going to the business to figure out what you wanted, but also the loop communication, so feedback from the business partner influencing top management, and then making use of all the available elements to drive a change in culture, which leads nicely to my own presentation and sets me up nicely. Thank you very much. Great presentation.
Thank you very much, Abby. Michel, can I come to you for your comment, please, Michel?
Yeah, sure. Like also from my perspective, I think a lot of the elements that Thomas mentioned are actually points that let's say that I also hear from multiple other controllers. I think two small items, let's say on the people culture side. I think let's say controlling and finance are typically still seen as, or mostly seen as, let's say, one little bubble in the organization. But yeah, it's a completely different role. Even to be a good controller, you don't really need to understand too much about the technicalities of finance and especially the legal part. So I think there's a lot of work to do also to educate others in the organization on how they see us as controllers. And then, of course, I couldn't, let's say, stop before mentioning something on technology with my background. So there, let's say, indeed, fully agree that like technology is only an enabler, let's say, and you need to get technology savvy people in the controlling organization to basically take most out of it, which is possible. So definitely, I think a big learning step, which is still to be gone through in many organizations. Back to you, Hans.
Michel, thank you very much. Abby, thank you very much. And Thomas, thank you very much for a very exciting presentation and sharing with us the maturity model. After having heard from Thomas, let us now go to the members that have joined us today and ask them about how they feel around XP&A. So through the first polling question, which I've just launched, if we can get your insight, please. So what is the biggest skill gap between traditional controlling and modern FP&A, do you think? If you can vote, please, that'll be great. So is it analytics and modeling? Is it technology and data savviness? Is it communication and storytelling? Is it critical thinking? Is it business acumen? So I'll give it another 10 seconds or so for people to get voting. So A, analytics and modeling, technology and data, communication, storytelling, critical thinking, business acumen. So I will now close the poll. Thank you everyone for voting, and I'm going to share the polling answers. So 25% said analytics and modeling, 28% are on technology, 23% on communication and storytelling skills, 10% on critical thinking, and 13% on business acumen. Thomas, can I ask for your comment on what we're seeing here, Thomas?
Yes, yeah, and I can understand that there's kind of a big focus on technology and analytics, and what I currently are seeing that even university are adopting to it. And if you think of the education of controllers here at university, they're already focusing on that and try to get this technology, but even the analytics skills really into their studies and education models.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And Abby, can I get some insight from you as to what we're seeing here, please, Abby?
Hi, I thought I would go more for the business acumen and communication. So I'm kind of surprised at the way it went. I think technology seems to drive a lot of people's interest, but with the technology, if you don't have the communication and the business acumen, the technology doesn't use, you are an enabler for technology. So for me, that might not be my biggest gap. It will be communication and acumen, which I think might be the biggest gap in pivoting to a modern FP&A.
Thank you very much, Abby. Thank you very much, Thomas. Yes, as we're seeing, you know, they are more or less equally the first three, with critical thinking and business acumen sort of lagging behind. So a lot of attention needs to be paid to the first three. Thank you very much, everyone. And I would like now to go back to our presentation, and then. So we've looked at evolution of controlling. The second aspect of our presentation today is talking about culture. So if we now move on to our next presenter today, who is Abby Obomighie, Group FP&A Director at Spectris. And Abby will be talking to us about how to manage the cultural shift. Abby, the stage is yours.
Hi, I come from Spectris. I'm recently new in Spectris, so I'm actually going through a cultural change in myself. Spectris precision is the heart of what they do. Spectris is a global company that deals with specialist insight through high technology and instrument and test. And I am keen on looking at values and cultures for any organization I work with. And our values are own it, be true, and aim high. So what does that mean? So if I go on to my next slide, it kind of helps sets me up. Reflecting culture, eat strategy for breakfast. Most times, this is Peter Drucker's, one of his most famous quotes that we know. But sometimes it is seen in a very bad light in terms of culture not being good. But just to be clear, he didn't mean that culture is bad, neither did he mean that strategy in itself was unimportant. But strategy itself is quite important in ensuring that we do the right things and make the right changes in our organizational elements. Culture can be a powerful lever for maintaining, renewing, and ensuring that we make that pivotal move as we move on. The next slide, please. So how does culture affect us as an organization and as FP&A members? It's that we in FP&A, we are linked to strategy, either through our planning process in short-term, long-term, medium-sized term, what's if planning, to try and get an organizational strategy. And our cultural behavior actually is quite key to engineering how we pivot or how we ensure that those cultures are important. As most FP&A person from the poll, I mentioned that communication and business acumen is quite an important skill. Without that, as business partners, what differentiates you as a controller? The ability to have a cross integration. In my one of the organizations I've worked in, what we tend to do is look at those values that we had. And another organization that I worked in, we talked about our values were sincerity, harmony, and pioneering spirit. What I tend to do with my team is make sure how does that value actually live out in our team to be able to make sure the cultural shift when we introduce new reports, we are sincere about those reports. And when we want to make a change, we are pioneers in our sense. I tend to say that, and when I get new FP&A members into my team, I tend to say an FP&A person is jack of all trades and master of all, because you need to know the different elements of your ability. The cross-integration element ensures that we are collecting, we are communicating, and we are challenging our business partners, making sure there's a loop of communication from top to bottom. Vision is quite important, because without vision, people cast out constraint and seem to do what they tend to be without understanding where they're going. So vision is quite important. Next slide, please. So how do we make sure the culture fits our FP&A move so that we are extended in what we do, we are agile in what we do, we are integrated in the things that we do? We need to make sure we, one, harness technology. I have worked in several organizations where the ERP that is being used, or the BI system that was introduced, top notch, didn't do well. All it took was for my former CFO, who had just come in, to actually say that he had used it in a different place and actually told us how best to actually use the technology. So it's one thing to have a good technology. The next thing is to make sure you implement the right tool with the right system. Otherwise, technology in itself doesn't give you all the answers. So having technology and making it work for you. So even if you get the best of your technology suite and you're not using it well, it's of no use. So making sure it's integrated into analytical tools. We're talking about reports, we're talking about the time it takes to produce those reports. It's quite important that we start to harness those technology by extending it within our teams. I used to tell my team, make a change, because if you don't change, you won't like what obsolete looks like. So try and change, even if it's the color of your spreadsheet, even if it's how you tweak the system, but try and look for a change. In that way, you're engaging my team and I'm upskilling them. But more importantly, do it all over again. Repeat, review, and refresh. Those are the 3 R's I always do with any of my teammates or direct reports I have. I make sure that we look back at what we've done and celebrate it, challenge each other, we review it so that we have a growth mindset. We are not just fixed mindset in what we have achieved and we are settled in our comfort zone. We are always learning what else is out there in the market, what else have come up in our system that we can upgrade and move on as much as possible. In my next slide, I'll be talking more of how do we stay connected. So you've gotten the team, you're refreshing, renewing, and always making sure they're on top of things. We need to stay connected to the business. FP&A, if we're not forward taking, if we're not saying the right story, and we're not communicating at the right time, there isn't a finance KPI if there isn't a business. So be in the business. So things I've done is take my team, the team I inherited, where everybody sat in front of their computer and just produced report. But what I tried to do was I had them to go into a business launch for a product so that they could see the numbers. And the numbers were not just numbers to them, they were actually a product and they were part of it. My team, how we make sure we were subject matter experts. I appointed different people to be subject matter experts at all our different tools so that we could challenge ourselves, get better in ourselves, but also help where we each other lack. Data integrity is very key. How does that affect cultures? I have sat in budget meetings where, because the data is different, it changed the whole conversation altogether and wasted board management's time. So knowing within our team when and how to actually pivot the right information is quite key. And then knowledge, I'm still back to knowledge, making sure we have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset within ourselves as managers, but also within the team. If you have a good team and you employed somebody that is better than you, let the person do the job. Knowledge is key. And that is how we ensure that we extend our planning and analysis so that we are dynamic and agile as much as possible. Finally, is the world shaping FP&A? Is a question I leave to you. Hope is not a strategy. Don't sit back and hope that the culture will change. If it's not you, then who? And if it's not now, when? When are you going to make that impact within your team? And I'm sure that's why most of us are here today, to listen to what we have to say. How do we make those changes? How do we become better? FP&A, when I started, is very different and has grown over time. We have data analysts within our team, we have technology driving our team, we have storytellers, and most of all, we are still a finance person. Having that change mindset will continue to ensure that we are agile, we are dynamic, and we can even shape what the extended FP&A will be tomorrow. So thank you for listening.
Abby, thank you very much for a very insightful presentation. I like all the different aspects of how you tackle culture, especially moving towards an XP&A sort of function. I really like the 3 R's that you referred to, which is one thing that people constantly forget to do. Repeat, review, refresh, continuous improvement process. Can I please ask Thomas and Marie-Luise to join us and give us some insight on what we've seen here, please? Thomas, if I can start by yourself, please.
Yeah. So thanks, Abby. I think you put it very nicely. And I can also only re-emphasize on this. So change the culture is not a kind of short-term process, it's a long-term road, and it starts with yourself as a manager. And also here for us, it's always just a continuous process, and you need to adapt to things changing, like technology is changing, business around you is changing, teams around you are changing. So you always have to adapt and basically, review, repeat, and adapt to those changes. So I think great presentation. Thanks a lot, Abby.
Thank you, Thomas. And Marie-Luise, if I can come to you, please. Marie-Luise.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Abby, it was a great presentation, and I really, really like the fact that you're highlighting culture in an XP&A context, because usually this is not what we are thinking of to start with. But if we are thinking now about becoming more agile and more flexible in terms of, like business environment, then culture and how we are adapting to change and transparency and trust is such a huge thing, especially in a company to align to a vision and a mission as a whole and build interdisciplinary teams. So the culture in the company is very, very important in order to walk down that path and become more agile, and that means. Thank you.
Marie-Luise. Thank you very much for the insight, Thomas, as well, Abby. Great presentation. Let us now hear from our attendees on the day and get their opinion as to what they think is where are they in that sort of journey. So if I launch the second polling question, and please, if you can start voting, that would be great. So has your organization adopted a cross-functional FP&A strategy yet? So the first answer is yes, my organization has already made a move towards it. Second is we have updated FP&A structure and tools and are moving in that direction. Third is my organization may adopt it in a few years. And lastly, we don't believe that FP&A needs a cross-functional strategy. If you can vote, please, that would be great. I'll give it another 5-10 seconds. We've got quite a few people voted already. I will now close the polling, and I'm going to share the results for everybody to see. So 24% have said they have already adopted a cross-functional XP&A strategy, which is fantastic. 32% have said they are already on that journey, and 40% saying we will adopt in the next few years, with 3% saying I don't think there's a need for that. So can I please ask Abby to give us a comment on what we're seeing here, please, Abby?
I think the audience are spot on. Regulation, most people are doing a few years, because I think it depends on where you are on your journey. It's great to see very few numbers not believing that there's a cross-functional strategy, but I am very pleased that 40% is looking at adopting it in a few years and also making that move in the second and the third options. Shows that there is going to be a lot of change in Germany for what XP&A means and adopting what that dynamic change. So I'll really be looking forward to hearing what goes on in that space.
Thank you very much, Abby. And Michel, comment from you, please.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I'm astonished that there's even some people still thinking that like the cross-functional approach is not necessary. I think let's say that's interesting. I would love to understand that a little better. I know it's just a very small minority here on this chart, but I think there's still, let's say, other people in the world who are basically in the same case too. So it really would be interesting to see, okay, why not? Because I do agree. Let's say the majority is moving there, and I kind of the poll, let's say, clearly also indicates that there's still a lot to do and a road to go, which is, let's say, not a surprise in my opinion.
Michel, thank you very much. I think, yeah, 43% is where we need to concentrate and work on as to, okay, 40% in the next few years, but, you know, what is next few years? And 3%, why not? So, members of the panel, thank you very much for your insight. Let me just hide this now and let us now move on to our next session. But just before moving on to our next session, I would like to remind our attendees that they can ask questions. Please direct the questions to whichever speaker you want them to answer, and you can do that via the chat box. So the next topic is, you know, once we've looked at how it's evolved, what the culture is like, so what is that operating model look like? And to talk to us about the operating model, we have Michel, who's from SAP, and Michel is going to take us today through what that model actually looks like. Michel, over to you. Ready when you are.
Okay, I'm ready to go. Thanks for having me again, Hans, and great to be here, of course. If we basically jump into the first overview, basically here is what we're constantly hearing, and what we also heard today is actually this need to move into the direction of focusing on value-added activities. Of course, at the same time, we still remain with the situation that we have only 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and hopefully we also do something else than working. So actually, we need to reduce the the time spent on typical operational processes. Let's not forget about that. And I think there, from a technology perspective, there's a lot which is already possible. And also a lot that basically many organizations have already been thinking of in the past. Let's say setting up shared service organizations, going for labor cost arbitrage, let's say reducing the cost of finance, but then as in the second phase also the centralization of process standard and process standardization to really free up time to really focus on the creation of those actionable insights, which we're basically focusing on today. And it's interesting to see that is also coming out of some different studies, including one which was conducted by FP&A Trends themselves. And basically then to focus more on, let's say, how technology can support and how we believe, let's say, the technology model could look like. I'd like to jump into a couple of elements on the next slide, basically to see, okay, which elements do we need, and basically which elements do we need to blend into such an XP&A model more and more. And that's basically what I've been trying to summarize here in just one slide, which is of course impossible to do. But the first element, and I think Thomas already, let's say, mentioned this, let's say the data definition is very important. And there we believe, let's say, that we should all be able to rely on a single truth of information. Might be called a data lake, but then basically already typically duplicating data from your operational system. So instead of doing that, we try to, let's say, we believe that there's even a step further and try to even, let's say, get that single financial truth close to our operational base system themselves, which will also at the same time help us in making sure that data and information is available at any moment in time where you need it. And of course, not just after your periodic closing activities, because otherwise we're never going to be able to run something in an agile way and to adapt and simulate, which basically is a third angle to it, let's say, which goes a step further than what a lot of organizations today still are doing in terms of planning and forecasting, really being able to go through different scenario planning, because of the fact that on the other hand side, we see basically that we need to really more and more look into our business performance across the enterprise, eliminating let's say intercompany buzz and really understanding, let's say, everything around, for instance, things like cross charges and supporting services, and basically to understand, let's see, what the net financial performance and overall business performance is. Same thing, we need to be able to analyze everything cross dimension, let's say, bring all of the different business dimensions together, not just your financial dimensions, but your customers, your product or service, your geographical area, and so on and so forth. And let's not forget about the fact that more and more we live in a reality that there's more and more multiple business models which are, let's say, under or found back under one corporation, under one organization. And also even thoughts on, let's say, how to optimize or change or adapt a business model from a classical product company to a service organization, for instance. Simulating what would be ideal, linking this back to, let's say, all of the elements which were already mentioned before. Let's say that's a lot of complexity we need to basically bake or try to bake into one platform. So how could this platform look like? That's basically what I want to get to next. And basically, if we think about how to optimize my performance, of course, we need to look ahead. We need to be able to simulate. We need to be able to run that all based on a single financial truth. Single financial truth, which we believe at SAP that it should be close to your operational system, and no duplication, no reconciliation needs, and basically again in timing. But of course, finance is only one element in the entire XP&A space, and which basically we should manage. So linked to this directly, we believe, let's say, that connecting all of our financial insights to marketing, sales, workforce, supply chain, and any other dimension, because of course it's these are just a subset of dimensions to the organization. We should be able to manage that from one platform, basically, being able to connect all of the pieces together, simulate in a very proactive and agile way, communicate this around, and that's basically where, of course, again, automation comes in, where machine learning comes in, where also different conversational capabilities, even conversational AIs and so on, come in, and the ability to connect different sources. Now, of course, I can go into all kinds of details on this in theory, but I'd rather, let's say, look into the system. So basically, if we just jump into the first system screen, right, just to give you a flavor of what is possible today. Let's say typically we're still looking a lot back, right? We're thinking about our Excel sheets and analyzing what happened in the past. Now, this is just an illustration based on technological capabilities which we have available today, or what's possible right now. While it's not a live demo, basically it's just a couple of screenshots, I assure you that's reality. And what we basically see here is just, let's say, the system alerting me proactively about my expected gross margin for the next 3 months, having a negative, a downward trend. So if we click simply on this, let's say, alert, which is coming out of the system, basically brings me directly on top of my operational environment a lot of insights. And of course, we're not going to analyze these figures here. It's just a demo example. But on the top left-hand side, we see, well, minus $5.3 million US. That's basically where my alert comes from. Automatically, the system has already detected that my issue is mainly sitting in the gap that I see in the first column of my bar chart there, in my city bikes, because accidentally I'm a bicycle producer. And let's say at the bottom is actually proactively giving me some options on how to try to solve this. Of course, there's no magic button, but at least if I click on this preferred option to go to the next phase in my analysis on the bottom left-hand side, I start combining, let's say, financial and non-financial information. And this is just a very simple explanation or illustration on how XP&A basically works all together. I could start analyzing, let's say, the sales information, my experience information, and so on and so forth. But if we basically click and basically fast forward in the story, and we just go on into our analysis, I know that my issue is sitting in my city bikes. Basically, my entire chart starts turning red. Maybe this means that I should start thinking about concentrating on something else. So if I go ahead in my analysis to the next, let's say, screen, I could just imagine, and again, this is a very simple example to round the story off, what it would mean if I basically start spending more marketing money on my e-motorbikes, because in the popularity index, I know that, let's say, this is something which the customer wants. Just by typing, in this case, a manual amount. So basically, if I click to the next screen, which is trying to illustrate this, right? And on any device, like in this case, it's just running on from a tablet. Basically, I enter this, basically, this brings me automatically to, if I click on, to the results of my little simulation. Just by spending marketing money in a different way, I see that with all of the predictive modeling, which is automatically happening behind the scenes, which of course I don't want to explain and dive into now, I see that actually, if I do this the right way and I execute on this idea, that in 3 months from now, basically, I will be out of the red again. Of course, demo data, so it's always a nice, good, and positive ending story. But I hope this has been clarifying a little bit how technology can help and support, let's say, with actionable insights to get forward and really focus on what's coming in the future. Back to you, Hans.
Michel, thank you very much for a great presentation, and thank you for showing, first of all, what the model should like, what are the different aspects of the model, and thank you for showing a live case as to what the demo also looks like in reality, because sometimes it's difficult to conceptualize what it looks like. So thank you very much for that. Can I ask Abby and Matthias to join us and give us their comments, please, as well? and we will start with Abby. Abby?
Hi, very good presentation. It's good to see what technology can do. I like the demo in terms of predictive and language analysis, what fits into telling the story and just saves us time of waiting to refresh our reports and skills. And then also getting the one single version of the truth, or a report that gives us a one-stop shop to make sure that we don't even have to leave the plant or the place that we are in to make an insightful and intelligent decision. And that's the joy of FP&A, where technology extends what we can do, but also takes it a step faster, quicker, and more agile. And I say that I think my executive team should ask a question, should make up their mind, should change their mind. And if technology can give me that ability to say, if X is equals to this, what would it look like in a nice and not data-laden place, so that my audience can actually have a good presentation or a good view. Fantastic, Michel. Thanks.
Abby, thank you very much for that. And Matthias, your quick comment, please.
Sure, great insights, Michel. Thank you. And I like and can confirm also, as Abby said, the concept of single source of truth, because I think it's really a booster to managerial decision making. By having one single shared and also indisputable view on a corporate's performance, linking financial and non-financial information, these information asymmetries we all know at the boardroom table, they are diminished, and you really then can talk about facts and not about who was prepared better than the other. Thank you.
Matthias, Abby, thank you very much for your insight, and Michel, thank you very much for a great presentation. It is now a good time for us to go and learn a little bit more about our attendees today, especially around effective processes for unlocking XP&A. So I'm going to launch the poll, and I'm going to also talk about it. So what is the most effective process for unlocking XP&A opportunity within your organization, would you think? Is it flexible FP&A systems? Is it effective FP&A business partnering? Is it integrated FP&A processes? Is it predictive, prescriptive analytics, AI, ML, etc.? What do you guys think? So if you could vote, please, that would be excellent. So is it flexible systems? Is it effective FP&A business partnering? Is it integrated FP&A processes? Or is it predictive, prescriptive analytics, AI, ML, all these new buzzwords that is coming out? If you can vote, please, that would be excellent. We have most of us voted. I'm going to now close the poll and share with all of us the answer to the poll. So 15% have said FP&A system, 34% is business partnering, 36% FP&A process, and 15% predictive prescriptive analytics. Michel, can I ask for your point of view on what we're seeing here, please, Michel?
Yeah, sure. I think I would agree, let's say, with the overall view that we are getting here, that everything starts, let's say, with the process behind, with the people behind, with the culture, the way I approach XP&A, and then actually systems and, let's say, even the advanced technology pieces are just enablers to speed up and to further, let's say, get to a further stage. But of course, it shouldn't start right from that perspective with the technology. Might sound strange from somebody from SAP, but I fully agree with this.
Thank you, Michel. And Marie-Luise, can I get some comment from you, please, Marie-Luise?
Yes, sure. Thank you. Well, yeah, from my side, it's a very, very strong note towards the business partnering, of course, because I think if you're close to the business, close to other departments, this is really where you can gain further value, especially in these volatile times now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marie-Luise, and thank you very much there, Michel. Let us now move on from this, and let me hide this. And next step on our journey for today is talking about skills. So what are the skills required for agile planning and analysis? To talk to us about this, we've got Marie-Luise Lehmann, who's founder at Finance Goes Agile. Marie-Luise, the floor is yours. Ready when you are.
Thank you very much, Hans. That's great. Yes, so we are talking about XP&A today and how we move from traditional planning to XP&A. And one big aspect there is the skill set in the FP&A department. And I think Charles Darwin put it very well in this quote here. It's the one that's most adaptable to change that's going to survive. And when we transfer this quote or this thought to current challenges we face in FP&A, it would most probably concern the idea of business agility in terms of departments and the company. So what I want to share today is a way of making a step forward into this business agility or fluency without the need of a whole transformational process within the organization. So some sort of a quick win, really. And the solution lies in the way we assign tasks to resources. So on the next slide, let's have a look at the tasks we usually find in FP&A departments. They vary in content and they vary in scope. And I've visualized this by the different colors, obviously, and the shapes, and also, you know, usual tasks you find like report optimizations, calculations, ad hoc requests, daily reports, sales plannings, and so on. So from my experience, but also like as a team lead, but also from my projects, I find that usually in FP&A, we assign single tasks to individual team members. And when we look in the next slide, we can see what literature has and what literature has kind of an answer to that. So what they say is that this is called I-shaped people, like specialists that are, you know, assigned to specific tasks. And what happens there on the quite opposite is generalists, the idea of horizontally shaped people, and they have general knowledge in many things versus the specialists having specialized knowledge in, like, you know, one thing. In an agile working company, a certain fluency or flow in terms of working exists, and this increases speed at the end because there's no disruption, and also flexibility. And usually this I-shaped structure in a company is one of the biggest issues departments are facing when trying to gain more agility and being more fluent. So on the next slide, you can see why. What these departments are facing are bottlenecks, because they have basically raised people with a specific knowledge, and this causes bottlenecks as tasks increase in scope. So usually when finance departments start their agile journey, they start with making tasks transparent on Kanban boards, for example. And most interestingly, one of the biggest and quickest learnings they face is that specific knowledge is not always needed. So usually there's a much higher percentage of general tasks than specialized tasks. So on the next slide, you can see how this can be solved kind of like easily. And the solution lies in so-called T-shaped people, having a specialized knowledge in one thing and general knowledge in many others. So what you have there is you gain fluency because you have the skill set in your company or in your department differing in the eyes, like in the specialist shape and in the general shape. And as a conclusion, you could say, next slide, please. that T-shaped people or T-shaped teams can prevent bottlenecks or solve them quicker, and they are more adaptable to changing priorities. They have a broader understanding and a wider skill set, which enhances problem solving, and they can accomplish more in less time, obviously, because they are more fluent. Thank you very much.
Marie-Luise, thank you very much for your presentation, and I can vouch for this because I've used the I's and the T's in various different roles within various different organizations. So thank you for sharing that with us today. Can I ask our panelists, Thomas and Matthias, to join us and give us a quick comment on Marie-Luise's presentation, please? Thomas, if I can start with you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Marie-Luise. And I think what you did here is just showing a way out of the dilemma we're all facing, just having really resource issues, but still need to cover lots of topics, but even have to have the specialized knowledge. I think this is so important. And this is even something we're applying it at Avira. So thanks a lot. It's a great presentation.
Thank you, Thomas. And Matthias, can I come to you, please?
Sure. Thank you, Marie-Luise. Great presentation. Actually reminds me of the Lego building blocks of my son. But nevertheless, I think the T-shaped profile brings another positive side effects to the table. Because by looking into others' domains of expertise, people might also start to question the task itself and whether there are better ways of doing it or whether it needs to be done at all. And this also loops back and serves as some kind of skill enrichment to the, let's say, original specialist.
Totally, yeah.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Thank you very much, Matthias. And thank you very much, Marie-Luise, for a great presentation. Let us move on now and ask our audience via our last polling question of the day, something, of course, relating to skills. So what is the best method to develop FP&A softer skills, so controlling softer skills? Is it via mentorship? Is it via training program? Is it via coaching? Is it via learning by experience? If you could vote, please, that'll be great. Is it mentorship? Is it training? Is it coaching? Or is it learning by experience? How do we develop those important skills? Also, would like to remind you that you could keep asking questions via the chat box, and we will answer as much as we can. If we can't, we will answer them via email. So 70% have already voted, so I'm going to go off and close this voting session and share it. So what do we learn? 19% says through mentorship, 8% through training courses, 37% through coaching, 35% through learning by experience. Marie-Luise, can I ask for your comment on what we're seeing here, please, Marie-Luise?
Yes, sure. Thank you. I think coaching really is a big aspect, but also the learning by experience. So I can totally confirm that. And I mean, at the beginning, you always need some upskilling in some sort of way, but I think that's not the end of it. So the mentoring, coaching, and learning by experience, I think this is really the bigger learning path at the end.
Yep. Thank you very much, Marie-Luise. And Matthias, your comment, please.
Yeah, sure. I mean, training courses is more or less the only element that can be outsourced. The others lie with us as managers and directors, right? So this is truly the investment we need to take by ourselves to our people. And this is, I think, also the hard part, as Abby outlined earlier. This needs to be the extra mile every day and our own responsibility. I think this perfectly shows it, even though that the voters are of this level as well. So quite interesting result here.
Thank you very much, both. Great insight. Yeah, absolutely spot on. I think training courses is what can be bought. The rest we can do ourselves, which is great, and it doesn't cost that much money. So I think we as manager, we really should push for those. So now let me just hide this and we move on to our next presentation. Having seen evolution of controlling culture, operating model, skills, let us go into what do we believe the next finance priorities are over the next year. And to deliver that, we've got Matthias, who is managing director at Protiviti in Germany, who will take us through the insight from the survey that I've gone through. Matthias, over to you. Ready when you are.
Thank you, Hans. And thank you all for having the opportunity to presenting the results of our global finance priority study. It's an annual study series, actually, conducted by Robert Half and Protiviti. And globally, we surveyed more than 1,000 finance leaders of mid to large corporates across all industries. And among them, 118 German respondents participated last year. What is important to know is that we conducted the study in the second half of last year, so the impact of the pandemic is already reflected. And I think this is also a crucial element to have a validity of the results. The pandemic is influencing all of our business today. So I bet the top 5 global priorities of CFOs and VPs of finance we see on the slide here, they look quite familiar to you all. However, driven by the current business environment, priorities like agility to changing demands, proper FP&A, and cloud-based applications, they climbed the ranks compared to previous years, as we can see by the little indicators. So if we look now to the German specifics on the next slide, we know that the general trend and the key findings of the global survey, they are confirmed by respondents in the German market. Like in other markets, enhanced analytics and data security sit atop CFO priority lists. A major difference, however, between responses in Germany and also around the world is the down rating of strategic and financial planning as a key priority. That might sound a little strange to you and this audience here, but with a score of 59%, financial planning ranks last on the top priority list for German respondents, whereas the global market considers this topic a crucial one, trending 20 percentage points higher. So our take within Protiviti for the German market is that the focus of the last decade on maturing the planning process pays out today. So this topic actually can slip from the priority list for German corporations. Further, we anticipate that flexibility and planning fluidity in volatile and uncertain markets is a muscle that has been well trained over the last years. So we can say some kind of homework done. For CFOs and finance leaders, a clear trend in their priorities is focusing on the core competencies and value-adding analytical components while setting the right efficiency levers using technology in daily business. We saw it in the presentation from Michael and also in the opening comments of Thomas. And the value-adding component is a stressed term, but it again is confirmed here in the study results. It appears that there is increased appetite for next generation and technology-driven topics. 2 out of 3 German respondents report that they are building on technologies and concepts like blockchain, smart contracts, RPA, virtual currencies, mobile applications, and process mining, and so forth. Globally, these themes score an average of 10 percentage points lower across the ranks. So this is really a big topic here in the German market. We are confident that finance functions of German corporations will further enhance their value contribution and also their innovative strength based upon these emerging technologies. Looking ahead, weatherizing the business model and the operations is a key priority, not only for every business leader, but also for the German CFOs and finance VPs, both on the technology, planning, and also the personnel front. Introducing cloud-based applications that support finance are by far the top priority for respondents, not only in the home office and remote work era, and in the German market, this is the key priority within the next 12 months. To promote a flexible and also agile workforce, 83% of respondents confirm a change in their personal view on finance leaders and on their staff working remotely. Further, 2/3 of them expect remote work on a regular basis, and going even further, outsourcing of non-core activities goes together with emphasizing leadership and staff skills and working effectively with outside parties. That, in my opinion, ties perfectly to what we discussed in Marie-Luise's presentation earlier. So in a nutshell, the technology and people components are the springboards to the finance organization of the future, in our opinion. And with that, back to you, Hans. Thank you.
Matthias, thank you for an excellent presentation, and would really like to thank you guys for doing the survey and getting all of this, not just globally but also a German perspective. And it was good to see the insight. In some places slightly different to what the whole world is doing, but in some places very similar to what the German market is doing. So thank you very much for that. Can I invite Michel and Marie-Luise to give us their comments on what we've seen here in Matthias's presentation, please? So Michel, can I start with yourself? Quick comment, please.
Sure. Like Matthias was focusing on people and technology. Marie-Luise, I guess you're gonna focus on people. So I'll take the technology bit, if that's okay with you. It sounds logical, I would say.
Sure.
I think let's see. And one element I just would like to emphasize. I know there's a lot of talking about cloud applications, cloud this, cloud that, cloud whatever. But a clear link here based on, let's say, some of the results actually from your study, Matthias, is basically the link between the need for agility and cloud. Because basically, if there's one thing that cloud can really bring is an agile approach to, let's say, change, and let's say the change in which, let's say, technology can support changing processes and changing behavior and changing approaches. That's basically all from my side.
Thank you very much, Michel. Marie-Luise, can I ask for some comments from you, please?
Yes, sure. Thank you. Matthias, you said value-adding components are a stressed term, and I think it cannot be stressed enough. So what we learned today in the talks about culture and value-adding and different approaches, and also in earlier panels of the FP&A board about beyond budgeting and so on, I think this value-adding term will be a constant in the next surveys for sure. And I'm very excited to see how it's going to develop and even, crawl up the ladder.
Marie-Luise, thank you very much for that. Michel, thank you very much for that. And Matthias, thank you very much for a great presentation and giving us insight on, what the market is doing and what are the finance priorities for the next year. This brings us nicely to our key takeaway session, where actually I'll invite all of our panelists to put their camera on, and please come and share with us what you think. A very, very quick key takeaway from all of the panelists, please. If I may start, Thomas, what is your one key takeaway from this session, Thomas?
Yeah, so for me, the takeaway is that there's basically a need seen by everyone also in the audience that there's a change in FPA is needed. And it's not only one thing, it's basically a set of things like mindset, skills, and technology.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you very much. Abby, can I come to you, please? What will your key takeaway be out of this session?
Because I'm vain, I will say the 3: repeat, review, refresh, because I think it applies to how you adopt, how you are agile, how you can use your T-squared and your group mindset, and just making sure that you are always leaving your comfort zone and being ready to actually be agile. And you cannot be agile if your foundation is not right, if you don't have the right technology, you don't have the right mindset, and you don't have the right people or the right organization culture to support it. So have an open mindset, be ready to change, because if you don't like change, you will not like how absolute looks like. So thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Love the 3R. Thank you very much for that. And Michel, can I ask for your key takeaway, please?
Sure. For me, it's again a proof today, like that it's all about people, process, and technology, and basically that angle between the three. Let's not forget about the data piece. See the single truth of data is I think something crucial, which I know everybody's talking about. And I think, let's say, the common data definitions is just the one aspect which could help us tremendously, I think, going forward.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michel. And Marie-Luise, your quick takeaway, please.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, for me, it's really, when we talk about conquering the VUCA world, it's really about learning. And that means a combination of technology, of people, and at the end of processes also, because this really needs to join together in order to make it more fluent and more agile at the end.
Thank you. And finally, Matthias, your takeaway, please.
Sure. Well, our corporate claim is face the future with confidence. So I'd like to see the positive side and also use the current momentum during this pandemic time within your organization to introduce all these next-gen approaches that we discussed here. And because I believe we all will need the time and the headroom from efficiency gains for shaping and managing skills, talent, workforce mix, technology, and also the modus operandi of finance and FPA organizations of the future.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you very much for that. This brings us nicely onto our Q&A session now, where the attendees have kindly put their question. There's a lot of questions, so we can't go through all of them. We will go at least through one of them for each one of you. So, Thomas, if I start with yourself, a great question there, Thomas. Thank you for sharing your maturity model and how you went about doing these changes. Did you use any metrics to define on which of these 5 stages of the evolution you are? Specifically, steps 3 to 4 seems hard to objectively separate or define. Your sort of take on this, please. Any metrics and how you moved on between those stages?
Yeah, I think the metrics we actually used was, and which even showed us where we are, especially in terms of step 4, was customer satisfaction. So what we did at one point is just sending out to all our key stakeholders, to the business leads, kind of a question to say, okay, how satisfied are you with our support and where do you need more? And basically the feedback of this then gave us confidence that we're on the right way and doing the right things here for the business, and that we are at this step.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Great answer there. Just would like to remind the attendees that they can carry on asking questions. We will get to all of the answers. It will be via email for those that we can't. So please carry on asking more and more questions if you do have any. Question to Abby next. Abby, thank you for sharing the cultural shift and how you attack them. Can I ask you, what were the biggest blockers or challenges you have faced while trying to bring about culture change, and how you dealt with them, please?
I think the biggest block is the person himself or herself or themselves. When I hear the phrase, that's the way we've always done it, that for me means you don't want to change. You don't want to be better, and you just like your comfort zone, and comfort zone is what kills us. Comfort zone is what makes a company redundant and what makes us as a person redundant. So I tell my team, be selfish. I'm not asking you to learn something that only the organization has. I'm asking you to learn something that you can take away tomorrow. It's your brain, it's your attitude, and you use it for other lives. I have worked in an organization where the values are quite important. My last organization, the values are still quite key to me because it's about me being sincere. It's about me working in my team. I'm having harmony within my team and my business partner. And it's also for me being a pioneering spirit to make sure I do things better. And then I come to a new organization, which I've just started, and I'm saying, own it, aim high and value it. How can those two work together? They're seamless, because if I own it, I can bring something to the table. So it's always the person. You as a manager know what you want, help your team see what benefits them. But be selfish, because if you are the asset of your organization, if you are good, the organization is better, the business is better. So culture starts with us, not just the organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abby. Great answer. Great set of answers there. Thank you very much. Michel, you are up next, and the question I have for you, it's a interesting one, and I think everybody faces that. Again, thank you very much for great presentation. However, our ERP can never give us the data, the necessary data required to produce those analysis, etc., that you shared. How would you go about, putting something together, especially if you are a small company, and what are we looking at in terms of time frame, etc. So, any sort of insight along those sort of lines will be very, very welcome.
Yeah. First of all, of course, it's hard to, let's say, comment on this person's or this organization-specific ERP and how it's being set up, and whether or what information can be gotten out. I think one comment on that, let's say, from my perspective, is that classic ERP was typically not able to produce this type of information. I assure you, where basically what I showed was, let's say, for let's say 85% coming out of, let's say, of course, a demo next generation ERP system. But of course, like there's always different sources of information. There's always different applications flying around. Let's not forget about that. Let's say I wasn't telling that everything will be in one single system. The combination, of course, should be made. Let's say to let's say other applications, bringing that information together. The key element, however, in my opinion, is that more and more, and that's basically also what we see and hear from organizations coming back to when they implemented such a system or such an approach, that basically they're very glad of not having to go and reconcile between different systems all the time. That's the main message, but not that everything is going to necessarily come from your ERP environment. Like if you're a manufacturing organization and basically your manufacturing floor details, like those are never ever going to come completely from one application. In terms of, let's say, how to get there, let's say, I think take it from the business. That's the main thing. Like or any let's say IT technical implementation, system implementation should start from a business. It should be triggered or basically started as a business and also handled as a business-driven process, not an IT thing. IT doesn't know what to do. Basically, it's the business. And I think their FP&A professionals are typically, with their wide range of information and knowledge across, let's say, with also the importance of the business acumen, where basically I also agreed with Abby, your comments you made earlier on, that it's really crucial. That's basically what should be driving any setup of any type of, let's say, technological support. How long it will take, what it will take, yeah, of course, that depends on size, scope, all kinds of things. So I don't want to, let's say, put out any crazy numbers here, but take it one step at a time. Don't, let's say, have, like, say, massive, monstrous setups, implementations. No, basically quick wins, showcase what's coming out of it, basically will also help in, let's say, just from a practical perspective, get some additional funding for the next phase you have in mind.
Thank you, Michel. Thank you very much for that. Can we now go to Marie-Luise? And Marie-Luise, so the question is, hi, Marie-Luise, I do agree with you about the T-shaped team approach, but what is the best approach in your opinion to convince someone or several people in the team who did it always one way and are reluctant to change? How do we try and change their mindset?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a question that's being asked quite often when thinking about moving like to agile mindset, agile approaches. And I usually say that people cannot be convinced in that matter. They need to experience how this makes their life easier. So maybe start, at a small step where like your staff experiences that from sharing insights, from sharing knowledge, that they have less on their desk and they can spread the work within the team better, and that this helps them to, be more adaptive and do other more interesting parts maybe as well. So I think it's really about experiences. You cannot force somebody, or you cannot externally motivate someone to a change. This is really something that you need to experience.
Thank you, Marie-Luise. And I think just to add to that, it's a lot to do with, what are the benefits of the change as well, and how we as an organization can move with those benefits forward. Marie-Luise, thank you very much for that. And our final question goes to Matthias. Matthias, you've got a consulting as well as a recruiter sort of background. And what would you say are the biggest skills in demand in the market out there, especially in Germany, for FP&A? So we've looked at 5-6 different skills from your analytics to softer skills. What is your take?
Well, I think what has come out of all the presentations, having this out-of-the-box attitude is something that is definitely needed. For sure, you need deep functional expertise, but I would say this is only the baseline, and then it's about moving people and organizations, and this can only be done if you are a convincing person that can tell stories, is sound in the functional competence, but also is an empathic leader to really try to influence organizations to step into whatever journey. And as Michel outlined, it's always a journey and a development towards a goal. And even though we think we know the perfect FP&A world today, we don't. We know it for today, and we try to step into it. And next year, maybe we need to learn something new, and you need to be open to that. So this skill set is, I think, reflected in the current demand. Get the basics right, have the core competencies within your DNA, but then be the one who drives people and projects and organizations.
Matthias, thank you very much for this insight. Obviously, skills is a big factor, and we can see that playing everywhere. Every company has got different sort of demands and shape and sizes, but it's great to hear your point of view as well. Members of the panel, thank you very much for answering all of those questions. If I may now ask you to go off your webcam and go on mute. Last couple of slides for me to run through, and by this we would have concluded our webinar for the day. Just again to remind our attendees, please keep on asking the questions. We will answer your questions by email, even though we've finished our session here today. Couple of last slides. So just to let you know, we've got a few upcoming meetings that you can register for. So if you can do those, please, we've got an FP&A Trends meeting happening 25th of March on capital planning, and then a Nordic Benelux one, which is very similar to this one, and then the FP&A Empowerment Survey. Please participate in those. Final slide for today is a thank you slide. So thank you very much to our sponsors, first of all, SAP. Thank you to Robert Half. Thank you to FP&A Trends for putting us this webinar together. And thank you very much to our esteemed members of the panel for insight and great conversation and discussion on all of the subjects that we talked about. But most importantly, thank you to all the board members, the attendees that have made time to join us today. Hopefully this has been very insightful to every one of you. Please stay connected, connect with us via all of these, and we hope to see you in the next meeting that we have. Please do stay online. As soon as I close this, there's the feedback session, and give us your feedback. Thank you again, once again, and have a great evening. Thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great evening. Bye. Bye. See you next time.